Gospel of John, chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. On the third day, a wedding took place in Cana of Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. And when the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." And Jesus said, "Woman, why do you involve me? My hour has not yet come." And his mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." And nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washings, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. And Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. And then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." And they did so. And the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. And he did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine, after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best to now." So what Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed him. And after this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother and his brothers and his disciples, and they stayed there for a few days. Amen. Today I want to use as a thought, as a subject, wise mothers. Wise mothers. As I think about a wise mother, I think about a mother who has wisdom. And a mother with wisdom is a mother who has a real good sense of judgment. She has a grasp on things. A mother with wisdom is a mother who takes the right courses of action. She always make a decision based on wisdom. And when I looked up the word wisdom, I found in the Greek a couple of definitions of wisdom that I want to share with you, because I think in sharing those definitions, we will understand a bit more about what wisdom is and the type of wisdom that's required for a mother to be a wise mother. The first Greek word, and there's 3 of them, and I want to share the definitions with you if you would just listen to me. I won't hold you long. I promise this is a short sermon, but I want to lay the foundation for the sermon by giving you these definitions of wisdom. The first one is phoroneus. Phoroneus is a Greek word that means wisdom, and this wisdom is a kind of wisdom that says that you have the ability to sort of govern your life in the right way. In other words, you use the skills that God has given you. You use the resources that God has given you, and you use them in a way that's wise. In other words, you look at your life and you use it wisely. You look at your money, your resources, and you use them wisely. So that word, phoroneus, is a Greek word that means wisdom. But there's another word that I like to share with you that means wisdom from the Greek. And this word is Sophios. And Sophios is the Greek word that means wisdom. And this word means that you are sort of use skills. Use the skills that you have to deal with the affairs of life. In other words, it's sort of a practical kind of doing of things that you can just do it because you know how to do it. So it really doesn't require much, but it's one of those things. This Sophios, this kind of wisdom is the kind of wisdom that you use in the sense that you manage the skills that God has given you. In other words, you use those skills and you use what God has given you to manage the affairs of life. But then there's this last final word that means wisdom. This word that means wisdom is Sophios. And this word, Sophios, as it relates to wisdom, is the kind of wisdom that is divinely centered. In other words, it's godly kind of wisdom. It's sort of centered on the things of God. In other words, this Sophios is wisdom that a mother would have, or a person would have, and since we're talking about mothers, that a mother would have. It's the kind of wisdom that allows her to fear God. It's this kind of wisdom that allows her to understand the ways of God. This Sophios. And Sophios then is the best kind of wisdom to have, because it allows you to have the ability to know God, and because you know God, you make your decisions day in and day out based on your knowledge of who God is. Sophios. And so a mother with wisdom then should always use Sophios. That's the kind of wisdom that a mother would use to allow her to make the right kinds of decisions that God would have her to make according to his way and according to his will. And so when you know God, you have Sophios kinds of wisdom. So a mother who's wise is a mother who enacts in her life, who enacts in the leading and the guiding of her children. She uses Sophios. This Sophios is what she knows about God. And so in other words, a mother who has wisdom, who has Sophios, if you will, she uses this wisdom to raise her children. She uses this wisdom to teach her children, to discipline her children, to nurture her children. And when we look at our text today, we see here that Mary, the mother of Jesus, and I know every time we see this text, all we really think about is Jesus turning water into wine. And you know, I thought about that when I was doing my study on this text. I knew I wanted to tell you something about that, because see, for all the people who uses this text to justify their wine drinking, let me tell you, let me tell you, I just learned this in my study, that this wine that they're talking about that Jesus made is really most part water and small part wine. So in other words, when you say he's making, Jesus is turning this water into wine, yes, it is, but it's basically mostly water with a little tinge, a bit of wine. So I just wanted to throw that out there. That wasn't really part of what I was going to say today, but I thought about it as I was studying this text, and I discovered that this wine really was, it probably would be like, you know how you would say you have some sweet water? Well, it may not be sweet water, but some wine water. So you know you got more water than wine. So for all of you who said Jesus was making some good old wine, that wine that you get is not the same wine. That it's a different kind of wine. It doesn't have the, I guarantee you this wine probably is 0 proof. And so he has some 0 proof wine that Jesus is making. I just wanted you to know. So if yours got any kind of proof, whatever the proof would be, you're probably going overboard. But that's not my sermon. Let me get back to my sermon. And my sermon was not about that. But here today, as I look at this text, we find the mother of Jesus, this wise mother. She uses, and I want you to look very close at the text, because she uses Sophios. She knew some things about God, and the things that she knew about God, she was encouraging Jesus to take his ministry to the next level. See, you have to look at it now. She helped Jesus because she understood some things about God that Jesus didn't understand at the moment. And so she says, now, I know, son, what God has in store for you. And because God has this in store for you, I'm going to set you up. And she really did. She set him up. We'll discover what she did here in a minute. But listen, based on what she knew God had in store for Jesus, she says, now, I'm going to let you bring your greatness out. And you know, I thought about that, mothers. You know, God has some great stuff for your children, for your child. And you know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to use this Sophios, this wisdom, this godly wisdom. You got to use what you know about God to encourage your children, to guide your children, to propel your children to greatness. And the reason you have to do that is not based on what you know about your child necessarily, but it's what you know about God and what God can do with your child. And so here, as we look at this text, as Mary, the mother of Jesus, propels his ministry to the next level, she lays some clues that I want to give to you. And it's 4 clues. And these 4 clues are short clues, and they're not hard clues, so we won't be here long. Let me see the clue. All right. So, let's look at clue 1. The first thing I see here as I look at this mother, as I look at what Mary did for Jesus in this text, a wise mother, if you will, know their child's capabilities. Yeah. So when you look at the first verses 3 through 5, Mary here, his mother, Jesus' mother, started to begin to say, so look what she says. So when the wine ran out, Jesus' mother said, they have no more wine. And then Jesus replied, says, woman, what you get me involved in this stuff for? My hour has not yet come. And so it was interesting because she didn't even reply to Jesus when he said that. If you notice, you know what she told the servants? She said, do what he says. Look at the text. In the text, when Jesus said to his mother, why are you getting me involved in them running out of wine? I don't want to have nothing to do with it. That has nothing to do with me. And the mother did this and said to the servants, do what he says. And you got to understand what happened here. See, a wise mother, she knows what her child can do. That's right. She knows the gifts that are in her child. She knows the passion, the things that her child is passionate about. She knows what her child gravitates towards. A mother, a wise mother, she knows the calling that's on her child's life. And when you look at this thing, and the reason that she knows, want me to tell you why? A wise mother knows these things about her child because she watches her child. She studies her child. She listens to her child. And because she does that, she understands what her child is capable of. Listen, you know, oftentimes children don't know. They guessing, they thinking they know. And oftentimes when they should be going left, they're going right. And when they should be going forward, they're going backwards. Kids don't know. But a wise mother, because she is watching her child and listening to her child and understand what God has placed in her child, she knows what he or she is capable of. And when I look at this thing, when Jesus sort of said what he said to his mother, it was really an indication to me that he didn't know what God had in store for him at that moment. Because when you look at this thing, Jesus told his mama, I don't want to be involved in that. She said, yeah, you're going to be involved in it if you, I don't care if you don't want to or not. But you know what I like about Jesus? He obeyed his mama. Yeah, he went on and obeyed her. He obeyed his mama. And you know what? Because Jesus' mother knew that Jesus had the capacity to turn the water into wine. In fact, she knew because he was her son that he would do what she told him. Because she knew he would do it. But look, just look. She didn't address Jesus at all. After he said what he said, she ignored him and told the servant to do what he tells you to do. Which indicates to me, she knew he was going to do it anyhow. Now, no. I hope you know your kid's going to do what you tell them anyhow. But this mother, because she was wise, understood that her son was going to do exactly what she told him to do. And the reason she knew, because she knew, based on her Sophios, knowing who God is, knowing some things about God, she knew what God wanted to do with her son, and so she knew what he was capable of. So the first thing is that a wise mother knows what her child is capable of. Second thing is that a wise mother brings the best out of their child. If you look at verses 6 through 10, Jesus here turns the water into wine. And when he did that, it displayed Jesus' very best. Now let me just break it down just a little bit. It displayed his very best because what you got to understand, when Jesus turned the water into wine, that was his first miracle. And that was his best. And not only that, the quantity of the miracle was his best. And the quality of his miracle was his best. Let me explain. I know, you said, what are you talking about? Well, let me show you in the text. In the text, there were 6 30-gallon water pots. And that 6 30-gallon water pots produced 180 gallons of wine. That's a lot of wine. That's a large quantity of wine. And then, after he produced 180 gallons of wine, the Bible said that when the master of the banquet tasted the wine, he declared that this was the best wine. Now, to understand what he was saying, this ceremony, see, in those days, let me help you. In those days when they had a wedding, it wasn't just a one-day event. It was a whole week event. Right. So what was actually going on all week long? They had been in a banquet, and they've been drinking wine all week. And so what naturally would happen is that you would put the best wine first, and as people have been drinking wine all week, they wouldn't even know what they're drinking by Friday or Saturday or whatever day it was. And so here, in this text, they had put, the host had put the best wine they could put out. Listen to me now. Listen to me. This is going to make sense to you. So Monday or Sunday, whenever this wedding feast started, the best wine that they could put out had already been put out. Had already been taken. And they've been drinking it all week. But all they get to Saturday or Sunday, the big celebration. And Jesus, after they ran out of wine, he turned the water into wine, and it's the best thing they had all week. And so Jesus, at this very moment, when his mother compelled him to make this wine, he made the best wine. And the thing is that a mother knows how to get the best out of their children. It doesn't matter what people say about your child. You know what their best is. You know, because the teacher's going to say they're not going to pass, and they're going to flunk, and they're not smart. But you know, mother, what your child is capable of. You know what their best is. When they bring a seed, and you know they can make a hay, you say, no, we're not selling for this seed. You're going to get in there and study, because I know you can make an hay. Because you know what the best your child can do. You bring out the best in that child. And nobody can do that like a mother. Can I tell a little story? Can I tell a story? Y'all all right with that? It won't be a long story. But I was thinking about when I was working on this sermon. A lot of thoughts come to my mind when I'm working on the sermon. But I thought about when I was a boy. And, you know, I wanted to be an athlete because I ain't had no brothers. I had to find something to get an identity. So I played football, and I was pretty good with that. And I ran track, and I was halfway decent with that. But I tried to play baseball, and I was horrible at that. But let me tell you. Now, Now, many of y'all who've been around heard me talk about this, but when I was growing up, we didn't have too much, and my mother, who loved me to death, I know that for sure, but she was never really able to come to too many of my games because we didn't have a car. And so the only way she could come to my games is that somebody had to give her a ride. And whenever that happened, she would come. And so what I realized as I was working on this sermon, and it's been a lot of years ago, like a lot of years ago, but it occurred to me, is that whenever my mother came to my baseball game, and I was not a good baseball player at all, I could not hardly hit at all, hardly, but every once in a while. I was pretty good running the bases because I was fast. I was pretty good on first base because I had just stand there and catch. But when it came to batting, but I remembered that whenever my mother came to that game, whenever she came to my baseball game, I could always hit. I could always get on base. And you know, my coach would say, well, can you get your mama to come a little more often? Right? Because when she came, she brought out my very best. Mothers have the ability to bring out the best in their children. Mother, if nobody else can do it, I'm telling you, you have the power to bring out the very best in your children. And when Mary stood up and said, the wine is gone and Jesus is going to make some more, Jesus made the best wine, he made the largest batch of wine, and he performed his first miracle. She brought out his best. So wise mothers, knowing what they know about God and what God can do with their child, always brings out the best in their children. And my next point is that a mother who's wise knows what their child is capable of. A mother who's wise brings out the best in their children. And the next thing is that a mother who's wise provides positive recognition for her child. Okay? I'm still in the text. In verse 11, when you look at the text said, what Jesus did in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs. Okay? So you always hear, you say signs and wonders. So what all that really means is, this was his first miracle. And I said that earlier. But it was his first. But the text also said that it was his first sign, but also Jesus revealed his glory and Jesus' disciples believed in him. Three things happened that gave Jesus positive recognition. First, he did his first miracle. Second, his glory was revealed. Thirdly, his disciples believed in him. Here we go. And so, upon Jesus' mother recommendation for him to make the wine, he was able to perform his first miracle. He was able to reveal his glory. And he was able to get the disciples to believe in him. Let me say it again. Upon Jesus' mother's recommendation for him to make the wine, Jesus was able to perform his very first miracle. Jesus was able to reveal his glory. And Jesus' disciples believed in him. So those are positive recognitions of who he is. So in other words, because of his mother's recommendation, she set him up for success. She set him up for positive recognition. She set Jesus up. And when this mother, this wise mother, set her son up to perform this great miracle, then Jesus' greatness and Jesus' power, and Jesus' divinity, and Jesus' godliness, and Jesus' glory was revealed. Positive recognition. And this miracle led his disciples to believe in him, to have faith in him, to accept him, to affirm him, to say this is God because of this miracle. And because this mother put forth her son to perform this miracle, you and I can have confidence in Jesus. You and I can trust Jesus. You and I can have total faith in Jesus. You and I can believe God for our own miracle. Because this mother put forth her son and recognized and recommended that he performed this miracle so we could all believe in him. And you know, I thought about that. How a wise mother should always put their child out front. A wise mother should always expose her child's gifts. A wise mother should always expose her child's talent and her child's greatness. Because if you're wise, if anybody's going to recognize your child, you got to push them out there to be recognized. Because most kids are timid. They're not just going to step out there on their own. They need a good mother. They need a good person to push them out there. The person who they're talking to every day. The person who's listening to them every day. The person who's watching them every day. They need that mother to push them forward, to be recognized for positivity. Because guess what? Let me just let you know this. Society's not going to put no positive spin on their life. It takes you to put them in a positive light. All society wants to do is tell you how bad they are and how dumb they are and how they're not going to succeed. But it takes you, mothers, to put your child up on a pedestal. Shine the light down on them. Shine down the light on their greatness and their talents and their gifts. It's up to you, mothers. When you turn the camera on, say, this is my baby right here. He can do this. She can do this. She's capable of this. And so, mothers, don't buy in to what the world says about your child. I want you to buy in to what God says about your child. Your child is great. Your child is gifted. Your child is talented. Your child is brilliant. You, mothers, put them in the forefront. It was Mary who pushed Jesus out there. That's right. That's his mother. She used what she knew about God and what God had for her son. And you know, parents, mothers, I want to say that we got to keep thinking that God has some great things for our children. We got to keep thinking God didn't make no mistake when they made my child. We got to keep thinking. And not only thinking, we got to be saying it, we got to be doing it, we got to be pushing them up. Listen, when I keep talking about bring their report cards and bring their perfect attendance, that's an opportunity to recognize their greatness, to recognize what they're doing that's good. We can fuss all day long if they're not cleaning up their room, but let's recognize positive recognition. In fact, positive reinforcement is what really all some kids need. Just a little bit positive reinforcement. But a wise mother recognize and put forth the positive things about her child. And last thing, and I'm done, is that a wise mother creates a family environment for a child. In verse 12, the Bible says, after this, after Jesus has performed this miracle, after Jesus has revealed his glory, after Jesus' disciples have believed in him, the Bible says that Jesus went down to Capernaum and his mother was with him, and his brothers was with him, and his disciples were with him. And you know, when I looked at that sounds like to me that that's a family gathering. You had the mother there, you had the brothers there, and you had Jesus' boys with them. And so that sounds like they were having a family fellowship, Minister Wyndham, that they were getting together. And they had an environment that was probably full of joy. Because they've been partying all week. A wedding feast lasted a week. And so they were going together to celebrate together after all the great things that had happened. And you know, mothers, nothing creates an environment in the home like a wise mother. Nothing. Because I believe, and nobody told me this, but I just believe it, that if the home is going to be a good environment, the mother has to set it. If it's going to be peace in the house, the mother has to set it. If it's going to be love in the house, the mother has to set it. And so, mothers, if you wondering why your home is the way that it is, if it's good or bad, you are the setter of the environment in the house. I know it's true. I know that's true. Because my dear mother, because she was so loving, because she was so kind, and she was so generous, in our house, it was always loving. Even when we disagreed, it was always kind. It was always generous. And so I know that it's the woman, mothers, it's your responsibility, whether you like it or not, to set an environment in your home that's a family environment. I don't care if you're a single mother. I don't care if you're a mother with a husband. I don't care. It's you are the one who sets the environment in the home. And this mother Mary, as I look at here, as Jesus and his brothers and his friends went off to Capernaum, it made me think about how important it is for a wise mother to set an environment in her home that's family oriented. It's in this environment that your child learns how to interact with other people. It's in this environment that your child learns how to socialize and learn social skills. It's in this environment that your child learns how to communicate and how to have proper behavior in groups. Wise mothers, listen to me now. It's up to you to set an environment in your home when your child goes out. You can say that they come from a good home. How do we sort of make that conclusion where kids or people come from? We make the conclusion by how they act. And 9 times out of 10, how they act depends on how they were raised. And where were they raised? They were raised in your house. And if they were raised in your house, then they're going to act like you raised them. Whatever that looks like. So mothers, if you're wise, if you utilize this Sophios kind of wisdom, you understand that it's up to you to create an environment that your child can experience nurturing, that your child can experience love, that your child can know who Jesus is. The environment of a wise mother. And you know, I understand now, as I've gotten older, how important that really is. Is that if you're really going to blossom, if your children really going to blossom, they got to be in an environment that's growth producing. And the mother, I'm sorry, mothers, that's a lot of weight, but you got to do it. You got to do it. It can't be done by nobody else. Don't expect your husband to do it. He's not as nurturing as you. It's up to you to create an environment in your home that when those kids go out, they're able to go out based on the environment in which they were brought up. And the environment that they'll be brought up in is an environment that you set. I know you say, well, you're asking me to do a lot. But God is asking you to do a lot. Because He's holding you responsible for it. A wise mother will create an environment in her home that's growth producing, that's nurturing, that's loving. And I promise you, if that happens, you will look at your kids and be so proud. Because that's your fruit. That's your fruit. And you know, as I come to a close, I just thought about that. And I said that to you. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Is that it's in that environment. Because if you try to grow something, anything, an environment is not conducive to growth, there will be no growth. And so mothers, you got to create an environment that's conducive to growth so that your child, your children will grow. A wise mother. You don't want no stagnant kids, unproductive kids. You want your children to be productive. Wise mothers. Based on what you know about God, based on this Sophios wisdom, based on that, you got to know everything that child of yours is capable of doing. You got to bring out the very best in them. And you got to recognize them for the positive and the good things that they do. Don't always point out their flaws. Who in here always want just your flaws pointed out? You know, after a while, if people just keep pointing out your flaws, you begin to believe that all you have is flaws. You got to say to your children, yeah, you need to improve here, but I know you're doing good right here. And I'm glad. And you show it to the world. Put their report cards on Facebook. You put everything else on there when they make it good grades. Amen. Yeah. Yeah, put their perfect attendance on Facebook. All these other silly pictures on there, put that on there. Recognize your kids for the good that they do, so they can keep on doing good. Plant good seeds in their lives. And then create an environment that's growth producing, that's positive, that's good for them, for good for their lives. Teach them how to act. Teach them how to talk to people. Teach them how to love. Teach them how to give. Teach them how to be good. And they learn it in your house. You don't want nobody, and I'm done, really. I'm so disappointed also when I hear parents say, I send my kids to school for the teachers to teach them. How in the world do you think a teacher going to teach your child something you haven't taught them? How? If they're not listening to you, you haven't taught them to listen to you and to do what you tell them. How does some stranger who spends just a few hours a day with them going to teach them anything? Parents, mothers, please create an environment that's going to be growth producing for your child. Wise women, wise mothers. Today, as I think about this Mother's Day and I think about my dear mother, no mother has all the answers. I know that. I got it. And every mother's going to make some mistakes. I got it. I know that's going to happen. You're going to be right. You're going to be wrong. But what I will say to you, mothers, how much I love and respect each and every one of you, because I could never be a mother. It's a lot. But what I want to say to you is that go to God with every decision you need to make as it relates to your children. But see, in this text, Mary knew that God had some great things in store for Jesus. So much so that she knew that eventually Because it's the same Mary that was at the foot of that cross. When he said, woman, go home, that's the same woman. You see? She knew that her son was headed to Calvary. She knew that her son would die on the cross. She knew already. Because remember, God gave her son to her through the Holy Spirit. So it was a God thing from the beginning. And she knew that her son Jesus would die on the cross and be buried and rise on the third day for everybody's sin in this room. And everybody's sin in the world. She already knew. So parents, mothers, look into your children's future based on the wisdom of God and bring them up in this world in a way that you can be proud of. In a way that you won't miss as much sleep as you're missing now. Because Jesus made the way for all of us to come to him. I so love the Bible. Anything you want to know is in that Bible. I so love the Bible. You know, I was thinking, what do you say to mothers on Mother's Day? When you look at that text, all we was thinking about is Jesus changing water to wine. We always ignored Mary. But she was there all along. It was because of her that he turned the water into wine. Because he didn't even want to have nothing to do with it. Look what wisdom a mother has.
Oh God.